Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the Conquest of Shuhan Let's Talk Lore series with episode 10, titled Chaos in Chengdu. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode, and be sure to stay tuned until the end of this episode for a brand new trivia question. Now, last time we left off, as Zhonghui tried unsuccessfully to convince the other Wei generals and officers to rebel with him, as his forged letter from the late Empress Dowager Guo carried very little weight, especially as the majority of the officers that accompanied Zhonghui on this campaign were largely loyal to the Sima clan. But now, having shown his true colors, Zhonghui knew there was no going back. So, to buy himself some more time to come up with a backup plan, Zhonghui placed the entire officer assembly under house arrest within his temporary estate in Chengdu. At this time, Zhonghui did consider killing all the Wei officers, but ultimately decided against it, as he worried that by doing so, the entire Wei army would descend into anarchy, with widespread mutinies and rebellions. So Zhonghui had no choice but to try to negotiate with his fellow Wei generals in hopes of persuading them to change their minds. Military inspector Wei Guan was selected by the Wei generals to represent their interests, as Wei Guan and Zhonghui would enter into a tense discussion in hopes of finding a resolution. The negotiation will last over a day long, as neither side was willing to budge from their position. And during this stalemate, tension ran high, as it was recorded that both Zhonghui and Wei Guan sat silently with their swords on their laps throughout the night, as the fruitless discussion during the day turned into an icy stare-down during the night. The turning point would come the next day, or the 17th of January, when one of Zhonghui's close personal retinue, named Qiu Jian, broke the tension in the room when he came in to remind Zhonghui that they have not arranged food for their prisoners. At the time, the entire Wei officer corps, numbering in the hundreds, were still under house arrest. Per Qiu Jian's suggestion, one troop from Zhonghui's retinue should be assigned to each of the Wei generals to take care of their needs during this period of captivity, and hoping to still convince them to join his rebellion one day, Zhonghui knew he needed to provide some basic accommodations, so Qiu Jian's suggestion was approved. Wei Guan was also allowed to take a break from his meeting with Zhonghui, as both he and Zhonghui needed some rest after their intense stare-down the night before. Now, unbeknownst to Zhonghui, Qiu Jian's suggestion had an ulterior motive, as before Qiu Jian became a close personal retinue to Zhonghui, he got his start in the military as a conscript serving under Hu Lie. And if you're into conspiracy theories, it's also worth noting that after Qiu Jian's initial service under Hu Lie recommended him to Sima Zhao. Sima Zhao then promoted Qiu Jian into the Wei Central Army for a period, until Qiu Jian was transferred to become a member of Zhonghui's personal retinue, where Qiu Jian would quickly earn the trust and favor of Zhonghui. But in reality, it was entirely possible that Qiu Jian was Sima Zhao's agent against Zhonghui the entire time. This would also be why Qiu Jian would immediately use Zhonghui's approval for the basic accommodations to establish communication with his former commander Hu Lie, as a plan was hatched together to end the imprisonment of the Wei officers. First, on Hu Lie's end, once he learned from Qiu Jian that the negotiation between Wei Guan and Zhonghui yielded little results, he started to tell his fellow generals and officers that Qiu Jian had informed him that Zhonghui was now preparing 1,000 ceremonial clubs and dug a giant pit, planning to kill them in a ceremony to kick off his rebellion. The rationale behind starting this false rumor amongst the Wei officers was to unite them against Zhonghui. As while most of the officers were loyal to the Sima clan, there were also plenty of neutral parties. Second, Qiu Jian would sneak out the city of Chengdu, to reach the Wei army encampments outside the city and make contact with Hu Lie's son, Hu Yuan. Hu Yuan then spread the same rumor to the various Wei army camps outside the city in order to alert the troops that their commanding officers were now in danger and were being imprisoned by Zhonghui inside the city. The end result would be a massive army-wide mutiny on the morning of January 18th, as troops from the various units demanded entry into the city to see their commanders. The gate guards under Zhonghui's command naturally refused this demand. And at this point, still uncertain about the validity of these rumors, the troops outside did not want to resort to violence just yet, as they would compromise from entering the city to just wanting to have their commanders come to the gates so that they can see that they're safe inside. And when news of this demand reached Zhonghui, Zhonghui tried to order the army inspector Wei Guan to the city gates to calm down the troops, as in his mind, their negotiation was still ongoing. Now, Wei Guan did not want to do Zhonghui this favor, so before leaving Zhonghui's estate, Wei Guan made a detour to the kitchen where he would hastily chug down a massive amount of salted water. And this quickly upset his stomach, as Wei Guan would end up throwing up violently before leaving the compound and then pretending to pass out. Having witnessed all of this, Zhonghui thought Wei Guan had suddenly become ill, so he ordered his guards to help move the now seemingly unconscious Wei Guan to a bedroom nearby where he could rest and recover. And believing that Wei Guan would be out for a while, these guards did not stay to keep watch, and this created the opening that Wei Guan was waiting for, as he would immediately make his escape out of the city. Once outside, Wei Guan met up with the Wei troop, who were still waiting patiently for a response. Wei Guan would confirm that indeed their commanders had been imprisoned by Zhonghui, and the rest was history, as this disorganized mass of uncoordinated and angry Wei troops from a multitude of different units would end up flooding into the streets of Chengdu, seeking to save their commanders from Zhonghui. And hearing this commotion and seeing signs of fire in the direction of the city gate, Zhonghui quickly summoned his guards to his side, as well as Jiang Wei and a small party of former Shu Han officials that were aiding him in preparation for his rebellion. Shortly after, Zhonghui would receive the confirmation that troops were now in the city and fast approaching their estate. Unprepared for this development, Zhonghui turned to Jiang Wei for advice, but Jiang Wei could only state the obvious that they now had no choice but to fight their way out, as Zhonghui needed to leave the city to make contact with his unit outside the city as well. It is worth noting that during this period, Zhonghui made an attempt to send his guards to kill the imprisoned Wei officers, but these officers had already barricaded the door to their rooms with all the furniture they could find inside after hearing the commotion outside. And this simple barricade would end up buying enough time for the mutinous Wei troops to reach Zhonghui's estate. With only 100 or so guards with him, Zhonghui knew he had no chance to stand his ground and fight, so to facilitate his escape, Zhonghui handed a small group of guards to Jiang Wei in hopes that Jiang Wei could buy him some time. But as wave after wave of Wei troop crashed into Zhonghui's estate, Jiang Wei could only do so much, as after killing 6 Wei troops, the 63-year-old Jiang Wei was struck down, dying as his final Wei civil war plot prematurely backfired on himself. Zhonghui would not make it far either, as he, along with his 100 personal guards, would all be killed as well. With Zhonghui's death and the rescue of the imprisoned Wei officers, the mutinous Wei troops had easily achieved their primary objectives within hours of entering the city of Chengdu. But by this time, this disorganized mass of commanderless troops was like a stampede of animals that had become impossible to rein back under control. Looting, raping, and killing of Chengdu civilians and former Shu Han officials happened all over the city, as common soldiers used this chaos to enrich themselves and take out their frustrations from the long campaign away from home. And to find out the damages that would be done in Chengdu, as well as the fates of former Shu Han officials and the royal family, including Emperor Liu Shan, Come back next time as we'll continue our series tomorrow with episode 11 titled Liu Chan's Legacy. Now, hopefully you'll have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!